This quite impromptu session of the Space Game Junkie podcast. I, as always, am your co-host Brian, and joining me, as always, is your co-host Jim.
I cannot handle the power of the
And
guests that we have today.
we do have guests. I am actually kind of rushed on adrenaline and caffeine right now, so I'm probably talking a little fast. But we have four guests with us today. Four guests who all worked on my favorite game ever, one of the best space games ever, one of the best games ever. I'm throwing that out there. Freespace 2 from Volition. Joining us, we have Adam Pletcher, who was the lead game designer on the game and is currently studio architect for technical art at Volition.
Hello.
Hello.
Glad
Also,
to be here.
you have no idea how glad I am that you guys are here. Oh my God. We have Mike Koulis, executive producer on Freespace 2, also the founder of Volition and co-founder of Parallax Software. Hello.
Hi. Oh, hello.
Sorry.
I was waiting to hear what you were going to say I'm doing these days, but anyway. Hello.
I couldn't find that. I'm sorry. I couldn't find that. What are you?
Why? Yeah.
I'm sorry. I couldn't find that. What are you doing these days?
Yeah.
Well, there's no trace of me anymore.
Yeah. Mike retired.
Yeah, I'm not in the industry anymore.
Oh yeah, I found that you retired, but that's all I could find.
That's all
well,
there is.
and then the book ended. Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Oh, okay. Well, congratulations on your retirement. I hope it was a good retirement. We also have David Beranek, lead programmer on Freespace 2, currently studio architect for core systems at Volition.
Oh.
Hi. And finally, we have Jason Scott, who is a designer and a writer on Freespace 2 and currently is the studio design director at Volition.
Hello. And was also the voice of Commander Snipes.
That's right.
No way.
Yeah. You'll recognize him, I'm sure.
See, I forgot all about that.
It's all going to come back to us. We'll have so much to say about this tomorrow.
We should have a hypnotist.
Just like the song, it's all going to come back to you now. So, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your afternoon to join me. I want to thank you for finally being able to sit down and talk to me, because this is, I still feel 15 years later, the finest space combat game made ever, period. And
It pretty much killed the whole genre, actually.
no, it didn't.
When they
Oh, God.
They released that, and everybody else was just like, all right, we're done.
Oh.
Yeah, they all surrendered.
Yeah, we are going to get to that, but I want to talk about how this kind of came to be, because before the Freespace games, and we'll touch on Freespace 1 a little bit too, you guys did like a couple of Descent games. So what kind of made you want to expand out into the openness of space?
So Descent was successful, and from that we concluded anything we did would be successful. So we thought we would do whatever we wanted to do, and asked, I don't know, it was like, and obviously Adam was going to drive this project, and Adam wanted to make a space game. That's how I remember it. I know that there wasn't any
See-
market research or any kind of analysis that went into it.
Oh, I
We'll be
like.
successful. What do we want to do? Let's do that.
Obviously, Adam's gonna drive the project. I don't recall that being the first thought. I think it was sort of like, we're not sure what we're doing. You want to write something up. You got, So I wrote. I think in hindsight, probably the only game design I had in me at sort of a genetic level was for a space combat game, because it was just the kind of game I played a lot in college, and that was just I don't know, that was just like my favorite kind of game at the time. And I wrote a couple pages that are probably laughable today, and I'm sure they're laughable today. I'm sure we don't even have that text, unfortunately.
Yeah, have you ever heard of a game called TIE Fighter?
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
yes.
of course.
Yeah.
I played a lot. That game cost me letter grades in college, I'm sure. I was let's see. I was playing that a lot in college, and before that I played a lot of Falcon 3.
Oh
Spectral
yeah.
Fight. I played the heck out of that game on my 38640.
With math
40
processor
megahertz.
or not?
I actually had to go buy a math coprocessor because they
Deluxe.
convinced me that the flight model was going to be so much better with that,
Oh God.
whatever it cost. And I'm sure it made a huge difference in the game.
Well, the one thing that was really nice about you guys' game is I never had to make a boot floppy to try to get the thing to run. Unlike Falcon 3, where I spent hours.
Yeah, or those Origin games. They had their own memory manager and crazy stuff.
I never did actually get Serpentile to run. I had to. The first time I got to play Serpentile was off Good Old Games.
Yeah,
So
those were not easy to get running. The I guess yeah. I mean, TIE Fighter was probably my favorite of that series, and I think it was sort of. I don't know. I was watching a lot. There was this TV show that I was watching at the time, Space Above and Beyond.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah, you guys remember that? Well,
oh, I have the DVD right behind me.
Yeah, well, I love that show, and that I liked bits and pieces of other shows and other games, and it just it was really easy to write up something. The fiction for it, I mean, that all came much later. This was more like, what kind of game would it be? How would the gameplay be? How would it play out? We didn't really. I don't remember this. Like Freespace 1, I think you and I sat down for about an hour and knocked the story out.
Yeah, I think you had
It was-
you had 3 paragraphs, and I said that's pretty good. And then, one thing, I don't want to get off topic, but we had 4 projects going on while we were doing Freespace. We finished 1, and then we decided to make 4.
We did?
Yeah. You came. Yeah, you were there. You came 1 year after we started it, right?
Yeah, I was about a year in the
Tube Racer was going on.
Right.
Summoner, or the role-playing game. As it
No,
was
Summoner didn't start until the Freespace 2.
That's right.
Oh, right. Okay, I knew my memory would be faulty. After Freespace 1, okay, you can edit this stuff, right? So after Freespace 1,
Sure.
so,
Yeah.
right. So I was totally focused on Freespace at that time, and that would have been 1996, right? It was. In fact, you were in Ann Arbor. You were coming back to Champaign, so you probably wrote those documents up in Ann Arbor.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Adam was
Hey,
working sent to in Ann Arbor with at the time Parallax Software, right?
Right.
And so I think we had a few phone conversations about it, but not a whole lot more. And then you came back, and boy, I'd love to see that page of what Freespace is going to be.
Yeah.
But I can't. I remember that we were more focused. We thought we had to get systems going. What's this game going to play like, and so forth. And the fiction, which we thought would be important, was not critical path. So I don't think that a whole lot of work was done on that in the first few months of the project.
No, there's probably nothing about the races or anything in that doc. I'll have to look hard for that document.
Figure on the network somewhere.
What kind of fascinates me about that is the fiction in the story is one of the strongest points of Freespace too. I mean, it was really good for Freespace to send.
Yeah,
Freespace,
well, we
don't
hired
get
a
me wrong.
writer. No, sorry, Adam, no offense, but then Jason Scott was not here for Freespace 1, and he was here for Silent Threat, right?
Yeah, I think that was my first week, or my first 2 weeks was rewriting the dialogue for Silent Threat.
Why'd you rewrite it?
So how do we do the dialogue in Freespace 1?
You wrote it.
There wasn't a lot of dialogue.
Are you serious? Did we write it?
Yeah, well, there wasn't.
There was
Whoa.
there was voice lines and stuff. Like
Yeah.
radio lines, but I don't think there was there cutscenes.
But there's like a lot of text in the briefings and
You wrote all that.
oh god.
And then the
I'd like to issue an apology. Anyway, we're here to talk about Freespace 2, I suppose.
Well, no, that's fine. I mean, you gotta talk about where it came from, to talk about where it
but
goes.
since they brought up Summoner, I just want to interject in here that I think that Summoner had one of the best viral marketing videos in video game history.
Well, that
And
was
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Where's
right.
the Mountain Dew?
Dead Alewives, yeah.
yeah, that was an accident. That was
What?
that was that was not intended to be a marketing thing. It was
That was Tim Borelli working on this animation, wasn't
yeah,
it?
exactly. Well, it was Michael Comet, who now works at Pixar, which is the best place for him. He's a very talented guy. And Tim Borelli are well, gosh, did we have Tim at that time?
I don't think we did.
I don't
No,
think
Tim.
so.
Well, Tim's the one who got all the credit for it.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh,
I don't know who did it. I assumed it was
Yeah,
Tim.
no, it was Tim.
All right.
Yeah, it was Tim. But now this is after. This is
that's right. Okay.
This is like mid to late Freespace 2, if not after.
Yeah. Well, it was an animation test. These guys, our animators like to they like take famous, audio and then animate to them in funny ways. And like when the Phantom Menace trailer came out, they did this whole Phantom Menace, audio, but with summoner characters as the video. And
That should be released.
we could never release that. No, we could never. Why? We would get snuffed out
We
of
could release the
existence
Harry Potter
by
demo. Or you
Lucas
could
lawyers.
release it.
We could never release that. It
You
would
know,
look.
wait a minute. Who owns the rights? Well,
Disney.
what
Yeah.
did we do? We used actual.
The mouse would murder us.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's funny because I guess
That
if we're
explains why we
not,
never released it.
if there's no chance of us making money off of it, I wonder. And since it's clearly parody, maybe we could get away with. Well, anyway, this is all off topic.
Yeah. So the thing about animation and you were talking about the characters and the story and stuff, and that was one thing that actually struck me about the Freespace games was that the aliens that you saw the one like in the opening cutscene for Freespace 1, but you didn't see a whole lot of them. It wasn't like a Star Trek type of presence, where you've got like Baylock on the screen talking to you, they were very enigmatic and scary because of that, because it was just like, what the heck are these things and what motivates them? And, it's just like they're like pouring out of space and trying to kill us, and there's really no reasoning or negotiation that can happen here.
Probably just because we couldn't find voice actors at the time.
And it may well be that we planned on having a lot of them appear in the game, and we ran out of time. I think the amount of cutscenes we hoped to have in Freespace 1 was significantly more than we actually shipped with. But I think it was decided early on you could not talk to them. They would not talk to you. But there was the Vasudans would pop up, right, when you were communicating with them. Yeah, and then we did the garbled language and all.
Oh, they were the bad guys, or they were one of the bad guys in the first one, right?
Until the real bad guy. Yeah, right. They were initially bad guys.
That's right. Yeah.
That was another interesting thing was like, oh, you're busy fighting these guys, but they're not really the bad guys. Like you think they're the bad guys, but wait till you see what's coming next. So, and I just thought that was kind of an interesting twist of writing there. Rather than be right from the outset, like, okay, here's all this backstory, and we're going to spoon feed this, and then, go for it. Where you actually let that plot develop. So, maybe it's something that you just kind of accidentally stumbled into, but I think it's something that has actually shaped writing in the genre since. So,
Adam.
Happy accident.
I don't know. I think we just like just the mystery aspect of it, kind of keep you guessing what's going on here and leave it open for future exposition.
Wing Commander Prophecy almost outright copied that with their aliens.
I remember that. And did that come out in between the two Free
No,
Spaces?
that was essentially
before Freespace 1?
Prophecy was after 3. Wasn't there? There was another one after that, right? I think.
There's 3, 4,
Prophecy
and then
was
Prophecy.
Prophecy was the 5th one, and I think it came out not long after Freespace 1.
Yes, I think that's right.
Yeah, I remember being kind of unhappy with the plot comparisons there because it was pretty. Yeah, it was very much the same sort of vibe.
Yeah, and for a Wing Commander game, it was a major shark jump too, because it was I guess they killed all the cats, right? So what do you do after that? But still,
that's right.
But that was the thing too, though, that I was very, very happy about the voice acting in the game, because Wing Commander had sort of set the bar for like that Top Gun kind of banner between the pilots and that. And whenever you go back and you look at like that remake that they just made with the using your engine, oddly, of basically any new space game that we talk about that we like, it's like, oh yeah, it's on the Freespace engine. So it's
So many of them, yeah.
Yeah. But the Wing Commander, the name escapes me, but they went back to that and they reproduced that whole really immature pilot banner stuff, and it's kind of cringy now. It's just like, wow, okay. And then you go back and play Wing Commander from good old games, and it's like, oh yeah, it really was that bad. Okay, but your game, it was more, because we had the guys that did Ancient Space on just a bit ago, and they were talking about how they wanted to keep it in like a military tone, and they didn't want to have like an excess of emotion and people just getting too weird in the voice acting, right, and hamming it up. So they played it straight, and we had told them at the time, it was like, well, Freespace kind of set the bar for that, because everybody was quite serious about it, and there was like a little bit of crosstalk between the pilots, but it was mostly business, and it just set such a better tone for that, rather than being something immature, kind of, I guess.
Like, one contrast I really love, since we're on that topic, is that in Wing Commander and even TIE Fighter, you're like the best pilot ever. You're the savior of the galaxy. Here, you're an actual kind of just a cog in a military machine, which actually makes you feel even a little more helpless as things go on around you.
That's true. I think the scale of it of the war was something we all liked, and we wanted to kind of emphasize that this guy, and some of the choices, like having the protagonist not speak, it wasn't like the guy in Wing Commander who you'd see in the little, 2D talking back and forth bits in between your missions, and, which is fine. It's just, they went a different direction. Then they, went all full motion video. But that's, it was more interesting to us, at least at the time, that the guy didn't talk. Right. And that was part of it. He was sort of, it could have been anybody. And TIE Fighter was the same way, right? I mean, that guy never said anything, right? And,
No.
You did have a bit more of the cog in the machine feel with TIE Fighter.
Yeah, a little bit, but
they had they had this established universe, of course, and could kind of just keep going with that, and had a lot of other stories to tell without using him. So it's a little harder. You got to sell the universe, as a bigger thing if you're making a new piece of fiction like this.
So, have you guys considered Freespace 3? Like, could you do it if you wanted to? Because I hear that you can get about $60 million if you go on Kickstarter.
Yeah, 63 at last count, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Interplay owns those rights, I think. Some famous or infamous people have variously claimed that they now own those rights, but I'm pretty sure Interplay still owns those rights. I don't want to draw too many conclusions from small data points, but I believe after the success of Fallout, they think all of their old licenses are worth 7 and 8 digits. So I don't see anyone besides Interplay doing it because they own the brand or the trademarks. Yeah, well, we own. I'm not sure. We own the copy. What do we? Who owns?
We own
Parallax Software owns the copyright. Parallax Software still exists, but the name and anything that's part of the trademark is owned by Interplay.
Well, just call it Liberty Space.
No. Well, I had a question kind of about that, because this installment feels kind of like the Empire Strikes Back of a trilogy. Like, it's much darker. It no matter how it ends on a down note. Let's just be honest. Was this supposed to be the Empire Strikes Back of a trilogy? Was that kind of the plan?
Yeah, we had at least, I don't know, plan is probably too strong a word. We had intentions of resolving the questions that were left open at the end of Freespace 2, or at least moving the story forward. But we never really had the opportunity to do that.
My recollection is we had several meetings. We had at least one brainstorming meeting where we got everyone together in the conference room, and we probably spent about a month on it.
Wow.
And
well, I think that was on DLC. I think there's plans to do a DLC.
Okay.
And
like Silent Threat kind of thing.
Yeah.
The DLC wasn't even
Add-on
back
disc.
then.
Yeah, you're off by a decade. Add-on disc, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
DLC.
Yeah, DLC was
Barely
we were going to do a microtransaction version.
yes, right. It's going to be free to play, and you can play on your phone.
We were very forward thinking.
Do you want 10 more
and
Shivans
then-
to shoot today? Just pay $10. Just pay $1.
So, Freespace 2 did not do that well, although my recollection is, contrary to the lore, it actually was profitable. And I hate to bring this up in public. Did you guys ever get a Freespace 2 bonus?
I did. I got a $128 check.
That's it?
That was my bonus.
Oh, wow.
It was great.
Okay, and that so what happened? So it shipped in September of '99.
Yeah, September 30th.
Okay. And then, so even though Freespace 1 was a Parallax software game, Freespace 2 was a Volition game. And when THQ bought Volition, they owned the royalty stream. They owned whatever rights in it that Volition had. And therefore, theoretically, Interplay had to pay royalty checks to THQ. But my recollection was under the agreement that predated the acquisition, that they would have paid bonuses. Partly because it just wasn't going to be that much money. Is that when you got your 120
No,
bucks?
you handed me a check for 120.
Well, I would hand you the check just because I would like to hand someone money. But
this was
this is pre-THQ?
No, I
I'm
think
pretty sure this was like right after.
We were in this building.
We were in this building.
Yeah, we were in this building because
Yeah.
we were down in the southwest.
Yeah, I remember. I
That's
was
right.
wondering if that was
Yeah.
for real or I made it up. But
It was
we were
like
in the
years later.
We were in the Southwest conference room,
Right.
and it was like I emailed the 8 or 10 people and said, "Hey, I got bonus checks."
That's right.
Remember
Okay,
that?
yeah, that did happen. Yes, but there was another bonus that you paid
It was
out.
$128.
It was a little tiny, but it was like right after the game shipped. It was a little tiny one.
Okay, but
That's
anyway,
right, I remember
so we eclipsed our advances. We got royalties, and given Interplay's not very strong marketing effort, I don't think they spent a whole lot of money marketing. So even though the game did not sell a ton, I think they made a little bit of money on that. But I'm pretty sure it was Interplay who didn't want to do Freespace 3, right? I can't imagine we tried.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Well, what was actually happening in the market right then that that space games just kind of ejected, right? Like
Well,
the
what was
whole
happening
the
was
whole joystick generation went away.
Yeah, the PlayStation 2 was on its way, and
Yeah, it was consolification, really.
But I agree also that the joystick was not becoming something every gamer had to own. The two big genres by that point were first-person shooter and real-time strategy, I think, and those are mouse games. And
FPS is pretty much obliterated.
Yeah.
They were so new, and they were so like Counter-Strike was out, Counter-Strike was out when we were
Quake.
working on Summoner, right?
Quake
1.
2 or
Yeah,
3 was
so
probably already out by
Those
then.
were on a meteoric rise, and I think people were just so amazed by them that you know, that's what was the interesting thing for the next, I don't know, half decade before.
Yeah, I mean, both flight sims and space sims saw a severe decline around the same time.
Well, yeah, because we are also not just space junkies, but we're super fans of that whole like Jane's series of flight sims that were going on
Or
in
just
that time.
Flight
right?
sims in
And-
general.
Yeah, well, flight sims in general, but the Jane's stuff was like put that up on a pedestal and worship it, right? Like it didn't get better than that, and it's just like all of that stuff. Because I guess joystick related, right? It all kind of faded out at the time. But when we were in the midst of a bounty of this stuff, it was kind of easy to not realize what you had, because it's just like, well, there's a space game coming out, on the monthly. It's everywhere. Right, and then once it was gone for a decade, then everybody really started jonesing for it, and it was just like, gosh, I wish somebody would do. But then the mod community stepped up and started modding on Freespace because it was the best engine that there was, and also I've heard a lot of stuff because we've had people who are the mod community come on here, and the one thing that comes from all of them is that the Fred editor is the best editor tool for any game ever.
Jason
anywhere.
Office. He wrote
Awesome.
He
You
wrote,
started it.
well, wait, I'm sorry. Oh gosh, Chris Helvig.
No,
Yeah.
No.
Helvig
Yes.
did not work on Fred. He worked on Red.
You're right.
For
Okay.
Red
Well,
Faction.
then Hoffus finished it.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
that's
good.
my
Then
recollection.
Good. I didn't give credit to the wrong guy. Yeah, Jason Hoffus wrote pretty much that whole thing. I started it thinking, I could write an editor in a few weeks, and I thought this is a big project. Someone else better do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the open source community is still using that to this day, and they swear by it. They love it. They can't rave enough about how amazing that editor is.
Yeah. Have you
Some of
guys
those-
seen? Have you seen the stuff that they're doing with this? I don't know if you go back and pay attention to that, or you've kind of moved on, but it would be interesting and validating to them. Like do any of you guys ever actually fire up the mods and play it, and just kind of see what they've done with your baby? Because it's amazing. Especially like the Blue Planet team, they've put just shaders and stuff in there. That game looks like a 2014 release.
Yeah, I suspect one of the first things people did was replace the entire graphics pipeline in there, because Freespace 1 was basically it was a software renderer, and in the last 2 months we snuck in like really basic 3D support for like the Voodoo 1 cards and stuff, and then in Freespace 2 we expanded it a little bit, but
Voodoo 2.
Voodoo 2, yeah, right, and like the
Oh God.
couple of it was like the crazy assortment of weird competing cards at the time,
Yeah.
the TNT 2 and stuff. But the engine was just never really properly built for. It was basically just using the hardware as a rasterizer, and so it was terribly inefficient. And I'm guessing they just tore that out and put all the fancy new stuff in, and like.
Well, it's all OpenGL now, right? Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
All the hard work stuff.
I thought.
Yeah, I believe so. Because when
someone
we were
ripped
talking
out
to the
DirectX and put in OpenGL.
I'm sure they could do
Yeah.
any number of things.
Yeah, this thing does widescreen now. It's absolutely stunning how good this game looks.
We've watched a fair number of videos, like especially recently since we've been talking to Brian about doing this. But it's it's amazing. I can't believe it's the same. There's any of this. Any lines of code that are shared there? It's pretty.
Now, how did releasing the source code come to happen? Because that was really a boon for keeping this game. This game, I mean, it's still amazing, but it could have easily been forgotten if it weren't for the source code being released. So how did that happen?
Well, we did it with Descent. I assume we did it with Descent too. And then I guess we just thought, well, that's what we do with our source code. We release it after a little while. And with hindsight, it's a little surprising Interplay allowed it. Actually, I'm not sure they could have stopped it, but they certainly gave it their blessing. When did they become public?
Oh, they were public.
90. Was it? It
I
was
thought
before.
it
Was it before 1 was out?
No, I think it was before 2 was out.
Yeah,
I think it was 98. I'm remembering 98 for some reason.
Okay. And so Freespace 2 went out in June of 98. I wonder if Interplay changed their tune after they were a public company. But back then, they were former developers. I mean, they were developer. I didn't mean it. But they were founded by people, with their foot in development. And that was kind of what a lot of people did back then. They were very open about what they were working on. They always wanted to show everyone their stuff. And I thought, we can write much better code on whatever game we're going to do next after Descent 1, so we didn't feel like we were really giving anything away, and it just kind of became what we did. But I think, did we release it for 2? I can't remember.
It was Freespace 2 only.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like, I think what had happened was I don't know, maybe 2 years went by or something, and we kind of realized, there's never going to be a Freespace 3. And I said,
that was probably.
I kept bugging Mike. I said, can we release the source code? Can we just get this out there? There's no reason not to. Like, we had moved on to Summoner and other things, and there wasn't any sharing. Some of the code had been brought forward, but there was no active sharing. So the Freespace code was pretty much all it was ever going to be. And you said, we can do this. I don't think Interplay can stop us.
Yeah,
or
well,
something like
that's
that.
kind of what I just said here, right? And I thought, well, wait a minute, we own the code.
Yeah, you're like, what are they going to do? So we did it.
Yeah, I think now that you mention that Dave in particular was really active in the Freespace community at the time, and we had the online matchmaking service we rolled ourselves and all this other baloney. I mean, there was no Steam at the time, and it was like he was on the forums a lot. We all kind of were for quite a while there, and that was just something everybody was asking for. It was like, oh my gosh, we'd love to add this or convert it to look like, I don't know if Babylon 5 was a thing back then yet or
Right,
not.
I remember that.
That's right.
That was one of the first big deals that happened with the engine. And
the community was so super hardcore about it. Like, they loved this game. They were modding it. They were doing everything they could, but there's a limit to what you can do just driven by table files and changing bitmaps around and models. I think we had released the POF compiler, like the model compiler at one point, but that's only marginally useful. So with the full source tree, they were pretty much unrestricted.
Now I want to go back to something someone mentioned earlier. Someone mentioned I'm having trouble keeping track of who's talking, but
Sorry.
someone mentioned that's okay. It's the nature of Skype. Someone mentioned the word scale, and that got me to thinking about really one of the real massive features of this game are the capital ships. And just not only their sense of scale, but this is really the first space game that, like in TIE Fighter, you had star destroyers and stuff, and they would shoot lasers at you. But here you had fighter beams and flak cannons, which were, I think, a first, even after all these other games had come out. How much work went into making these amazingly massive and detailed and threatening capital ships?
They were a big problem technically. It was a challenge.
Yeah. It was tough. I mean, I don't know about tech side so much, but like art-wise, it was tough to put enough interesting texture on it, on these. We had very tight memory restrictions, and we couldn't just throw a bunch of custom maps that were all, specially designed for specific polygons and all that stuff. Like we couldn't really skin it like we would today, right? And so we had to rely on a lot of tiled stuff. So it became the challenge was covering such a large piece of real estate with enough unique detail without blowing our limits. Because it's so big that the textile size was just gigantic.
Yeah, the textile size was probably bigger than a fighter ship.
It really was. And your eye tends to, especially before there was like trilinear filtering and whatnot. Your eye was really drawn to the size of textiles as a cue for scale, and it was that was a big problem for us, like trying to strike the right balance between memory and just kind of visual density and when you're up close, making it not a blurry mess.
There were also a lot of non-rendering issues, like the AI. Pretty much, we acted as if you were fighting in a vacuum, which you are, except for all the other objects in that vacuum. And the chance of two ships pursuing independent goals and crashing into each other was effectively zero until you added those capital ships. And then you'd be trying to figure out why this mission was breaking, and you'd find out that critical ships were smashing themselves into capital ships. So now there were these things you actually had to avoid there. Or if an enemy was coming after you and you were on the other side of if you just ducked behind a capital ship, that enemy would fly right into the capital ship. So we had to write, we had to sort of write, object avoidance code. And in Freespace 1, that came pretty late. And I assume you rewrote it all in Freespace 2, and it was actually good.
I think probably so. Dave Ansager was the guy who did the physics engine on Freespace 1, and he was on Freespace 2 as well. And I would say 50% of the time on that project he spent dealing with AI around capital ships.
Yeah.
Because one of the other issues too is
they had moving parts.
Well, they had moving parts, but when you want to make a small ship attack a capital ship, you can't just have it do it the same way it would attack any other ship because it looks dumb.
It can't just fire at the middle.
It can't just fire at the middle and get behind it. It looks ridiculous. Yeah. They have to like circle around it and find interesting points, and there was a whole lot of work done there to make them behave differently and make other ships behave differently towards them as well.
The biggest capital ship in Freespace 1 versus 2 was like a factor of 5 difference or something like that, or. I mean, I didn't really think of them as being different until I really had to at the very end of Freespace 1.
Yeah, there were the two big super juggernauts. I think that's probably what really broke the camel's back. There was the juggernauts from Freespace 2 were so much bigger that sort of the hacky the way it kind of worked on Freespace 1 just totally fell apart completely for those. So we had. I think in those models we had all these little spline paths and ways ships could decide to fly around them that would look intelligent. Because otherwise the AI just couldn't do a good job of how do I choose a smart looking path?
We helped it along with some rigging data. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Right. So it was the artist's job to create the path information. It was essentially like nav
kind of like nav points.
Nav points.
They were just hints though. They weren't like literal rails or anything. It was, but that helped that simplified the problem quite a bit. I think the explosions were also kind of tricky because we wanted them to kind of split in the middle the way they break apart in the middle and kind of drift apart, and that was a little hairy. I think John did that, didn't he?
There's some rendering trickery
John
there.
Slagle. It's actually rendering two ships with two different
I did not know
planes.
that until the game shipped.
Yeah, when the moment they split apart, it's rendering two ships, but
Against the clip plane.
sliding clip planes.
And I believe there was also some serious physics problems with that too, because there was two gas ships self-intersecting each other at that point.
Yeah, I think Anseiger had a little fit about that one.
That was another amazing thing about the game is when if you were close enough to a capital ship when it exploded, even if you didn't have force feedback, you felt it.
Yeah, our physics was well beyond any other game of that type at the time. I remember being very impressed with it, especially the one. This is probably Freespace 1 here, but the one that had the big rotating piece. I should know this by name. Yeah,
that is Freespace 1, but that's okay.
Showing my hand here, but showing my age as well. But it had the big rotating orbital part in the middle, and it the day that Dave made that actually smack fighters and have them fly away in an interesting manner, believable and realistic angle was like holy cow.
Yeah.
I'd never seen anything like that.
That's a particularly tricky physics problem.
Moment of inertia. He talked to me for an hour and a half about what moment of inertia was, and I was sort of really nodding off at the end.
It's interesting because the guy in question here is Dave Anseiger, who still works here.
Yeah.
He worked in physics, and he happens to have a PhD in physics. So,
damn.
He really
to do this.
Yes, he really knew what he was doing, and I think his PhD, what he did for his specialty was
deep space physics
was mechanics, which is all about interaction of objects.
I didn't know that.
So he's pretty much the perfect, smartest possible dude you
Who
could.
knew? He just put his application in one day.
Yeah.
He's really smart.
Well, I gotta give you guys props for one of the reasons this game is so good even now is the engine, the dogfighting engine. It's really one of the most fluid dogfighting engines to this day. I mean, no other game captures how good space combat feels.
Well, by contrast, the stuff in Wing Commander, even the late Wing Commander games, it felt like flying a desk. You didn't feel like it was really a dynamic thing, and then of course in this game, it's pretty great. I think actually the height of physics that has been done is that Battlestar Galactica mod where they actually put they put a lot of momentum and stuff, and you have to think about that because you'll drift into something. You're trying to turn and you keep flying the way you were going. But just the fact that the engine's capable of that stuff, is a testament to all of that. But you guys were saying about the cap ships and the scale and that was a thing that struck me literally immediately whenever I was playing those missions. Is you get between two cap ships that are duking it out with those beams, they don't care about you. And even the friendly ship doesn't care about you. It will just blow you away, and it's a one-hit thing. There's no oh no, it knocked my shields down. You're just atoms at that point. So it led a very serious caution about flying in between two big ships that were duking it out. You just really didn't want to be there. And,
as I recall, when we put that stuff in there were some issues where the ships would attempt not to shoot if you were there, and we thought that was ridiculous, right? Like if you were flying in front
we're
of
going to lose the war because this idiot's
right.
flying.
Because there was AI code that was somewhat common, and the AI code would say, "Oh, my friendly player's in front of me. Don't shoot my lasers."
Well, you know what? I'll bet that was fighter code.
Yeah,
it's
I'm sure it was.
Well, the player's in my way, so I can't fire because he doesn't want to get killed. Well, that's fine, but a capital ship can't not fire its beam at the other capital
That's right.
ship. Yeah.
So we had to put in some code to basically say, well, just who cares? If you're in the way, you're dead, and it's going to kill the player a bit, but it shouldn't be enough that it's frustrating.
Well, I think it's cool, right? I mean when
cool,
you see that happen,
I kind of love it. I kind of love that can happen.
it's just the whole don't walk out in traffic.
right?
It's like
you get that sound when the beam weapons were powering up, and I just remember that being a very tense moment, not knowing whether or not you were about to get vaporized. Right.
Another physics thing that we noticed in there too was whenever you're in the torpedo bomber and you're flying, because we had a problem where it's like every time we keep launching these torpedoes and they get shot down. How do we get through this? And then Brian figured out, you hit the afterburners and you get hauling ass, and then you let the torpedoes go because they get the momentum of the ship and their own rocket, so they go much faster, and then you can actually get them through the defenses. Just stuff like that we're still discovering today.
Yeah.
Of ways to play that game. So
That's cool.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask about, well, I have a bunch of things I want to ask about, but one of my favorite things about this game, and it's a little thing, but how much work went into the HUD? Because this game has the finest HUD of any space fighter game I've ever encountered.
And yet you resisted putting the cockpit in, though, which was
I
kind
like
of
that.
controversial-ish at the time.
Well, I don't know. It came down to probably two things. Primarily, one would be like rendering speed and technology. It's just like, well, do we really want to spend the polys and the whatever on doing a real cockpit here? Or do we want to cover up the screen with some 2D cockpit? Or do we have the art skill to pull one off in a good manner? I mean, it's a lot easier to design, at least for me, it was a lot easier to cook up a 2D, virtual heads-up display sort of cockpit than it was to do something with some substance to it. So that was part of it, but yeah, I mean, we iterated that HUD, all the little, elements on the HUD a lot. I recall that.
We added a gauge a week before we shipped. It was how many ships are the dots that ships are attacking my ship.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. It's such a little thing, but it's like when you see it, it's like, oh my god, that's so amazing and important.
That's true, and the late editions are all Mike's idea, and I remember
Because
being
only I could get an idea in that late. Yeah.
no, that wasn't it. It was just, I don't know. I felt like a few weeks earlier we just shouldn't be touching that stuff anymore or whatever.
Oh, you were
I was
right,
paranoid
yeah.
and stressed out, and Mike was like, hey, what about this? And I was like, are you crazy? And one of them was the dots was a good addition. The other one that I thought I think I literally rolled my eyes at him was the target my target's target. He told me, he said, that would be a great keyboard shortcut to add. I'm like, are you kidding me? That just sounds insane. And of course, it's like one of the most useful things.
It really is.
Useful keyboard shortcuts there is in the game.
Well, and that was an interesting one too, because there was a lot of feature creep that came from that. Because there was every targeting feature we had also had a next and a previous. So whoever did target my target's target had to do target my target's next target, target my target's previous target, and so every little
and the shift, the modifier.
It just got really, really complicated.
It's it was like an undo stack, or it should have been like an undo. Yeah.
I'm not sure how that was tracked. It was a pretty
Heck if I
complex
know.
thing.
But that
you
was
guys sold a lot of joysticks for Thrustmaster, that's for sure.
we broke
All that
a lot.
programmability.
Yeah, we had a box that was probably about, I don't know, it was like 2 feet by 2 feet by 3 feet or something, full of broken through. Well, I mean, we really started breaking them with Descent when people use the hat, which is, for weapon select in a real situation. People use that for movement. Well, if it's for movement, you're pushing hard, right? And it was plastic. So we would break those hats and throw it in a box and get the next one.
And we would just literally there was a guy at Thrustmaster. We call up and say, hey, we're done with the current batch. Can you send us another one? And he would, and he'd send us their latest stuff and whatever, and he'd want to hear about our feedback and never charge us a dime for all the I mean, we're talking about at most 10 joysticks here, so it wasn't a huge expense for them. But
when you got the dual, that was $100, wasn't it?
Oh
The
yeah.
left and right hand, the throttle thing.
Hot S or whatever.
Yeah, we're doing hand motions here that make it all accessible.
Can you see what I'm doing? Because it's really interesting. Yeah. No, the throttle on the left. You guys know what I'm talking about. So we had that. I had one of those setups for a while, and I don't know. I ended up going back to my old 2-axis 2-button joystick, like I always did in those days. So, but for personal preference, but for testing and whatnot, we had lots of boxes and boxes of new and broken joysticks.
Sandeep added the force feedback support, right?
Yeah.
At the end of Freespace 1 or 2. I thought
It was thrust. There were a couple of manufacturers doing was it just vibration, or was it making it harder to move in a certain
There was
direction?
directional force feedback.
Yeah, directional force feedback. Yeah, that was a late addition, right?
Those are huge
Another thing,
joysticks.
well, how hard can that be?
I was actually using a Microsoft Sidewinder force feedback at the time that I got the game, and it would actually, when you'd get hit in the right hand side, it would knock the joystick to the left pretty hard.
Cool.
So you knew where the hits were coming from because the stick would actually shy away from it.
Yeah, I think he put that in pretty quick. It was Sandeep Shaker. He's over at Naughty Dog now. He's me and him started Evolution on the same day. Both put on Freespace.
1997, I believe.
1997,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
he
amazing.
went on to design Summoner titles, I
Yeah,
think.
that's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I never got to experience force feedback with this game. I kind of feel like I'm still missing out. I need to track down some kind of force feedback joystick. I think.
Well, what you could do is actually, when you play the game, just have Nicole stand behind you and like wiggle the chair and smack you in the head when you get shot.
That'll be
That
great.
Yeah.
That'll be that's a fabulous idea, and she will love that because she never. This is my girlfriend.
She's looking for an excuse.
Now I wanted to move on to one of the really biggest lauded parts of Freespace 2, the story. This story is still, I think, one of the best in gaming. I mean, it's dark, it's detailed, it's deep, and it doesn't end happily. You know?
No, yeah, it was a bit in hindsight. I mean, knowing the way that the fact that we weren't able to make a Freespace 3, I wish that there had been more closure at the very end of it. But yeah, there's some big unanswered questions there, and although you can end on a victorious note, it's still it's still at a pretty big cost.
Yeah.
And it has Robert Loggia in it.
It has
Oh,
Robert
I wanted to ask about the voice acting. You guys had Robert Loggia. I wanted to ask about the voice cast because you had Robert Loggia, you had the guy from RoboCop, Kurtwood Smith, and you had the other guy from RoboCop too. Oh God.
Ken.
No, it was what's his name?
No, Dick. His name in the movie was Dick.
Dick
Yeah,
Jones.
Dick Jones. It was Dick Jones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He was in the game.
Oh,
Ronnie Cox.
Ronnie Cox. Yes, Ronnie Cox. You guys had some great voice talent in this game. How did that all happen?
We also had great local voice talent, right?
Yeah, well,
Uh,
Interplay did all the Hollywood stuff.
Yeah.
I remember there was somebody had come out here, I think, just to learn about the game and the different characters that they were going to.
The voice producer.
Record. Yeah,
wow, who was that?
I don't remember. Jim might know, but I remember talking to him for maybe 10 minutes, and then we got voice files at some point in the future. So
you didn't fly out and for the recording?
not for Freespace. Yeah.
Really? Because I thought I have recollections of you being in the vicinity when Loggia was doing his recording.
No.
But somebody was, because
I remember some jokes.
it was Robert Loggia.
Yeah,
because he said
that
his
was
lines
his name.
so slowly.
They call him Robert.
Oh God, what?
R for Robert Loggia.
He could not keep up the pace.
Oh God.
Yeah, he has a very distinctive voice.
I
He
remember being
does.
impressed that we had like that caliber of they were real name people,
Yeah.
people that you knew from big movies. I was like, wow, this is so amazing.
Yeah, our previous brush with fame was like getting Alice from Brady Bunch to do the Descent commercial.
Jim Harbaugh, who's a big deal now.
Oh no, my favorite was the dog from Frasier.
What?
That was
You're talking Descent.
yeah. That was like our previous brush with fame. Was
Not Rodney Dangerfield from the other Descent commercial?
Rodney Dangerfield, and who's the Jenny McCarthy?
Jenny McCarthy.
What?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she did a commercial.
She was only on MTV at this point in her
They
career.
tried to get Dennis Rodman,
That's right.
but because I think he didn't make the All-Star team, and that's when he would have a window. But he decided he wanted to go to Jamaica instead, or something like that. And that's why we got Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, right.
No, what's it? Yeah, it was Jim Harbaugh. I think it was Jim Harbaugh. Yeah.
Yeah, some sports guy that I didn't know.
So does that actually get sales? If you have like let's say like okay, Mike Tyson comes on TV and he's like buy Descent Freespace. I mean, does that actually connect?
I don't know. I think marketing's not produced solid data for us over the years, so I don't know.
You mean? Are you talking about recently?
Well, ever. I think it's a general question. I think, right?
Do stars?
Yeah, well,
Do stars?
just in general, like if you had a, I mean,
think
if you're selling a Rambo game, you get Stallone, right, and it's going to work. But if you
Yeah.
have some like Dennis Rodman hawking a space game,
Just
I
endorsement
don't
stuff.
necessarily know that his fans are your fans.
Yeah, they did not
But
do TV for Freespace, either one, right? And they pretty much didn't do marketing for Freespace too. But I think the Dissent TV campaigns were a big failure. I mean, economically,
really?
the return on that investment, I think, was negative.
Uh,
I mean,
Yeah, but
you can't really know, but I don't remember talking to anyone who was like, "Oh, I saw your commercial last night," and I didn't even. I had to look at the reel or whatever the VHS tape probably that we got to look at it, so I could actually see the commercials because I never knew when they were going to be on TV.
That's not a good sign.
yeah,
Yeah.
Descent was pretty interesting. That like a departure from because it was like Doom and then Quake, and then suddenly we've got full 6 degrees of freedom, in a cave system kind of thing, and it was just like how did that leap happen? Were you guys
Well,
just like, hey, look at this because we can, let's make a game?
yeah, well, so as far as Descent goes, Matt and I had worked on Flight Simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator,
whoa!
which was developed here in Champaign. And so really all we did was said, let's do a flying game. And, we did not even know anything about Doom when we started it. We actually saw it very early. We went down to Dallas where Apogee, who was our initial publisher, was, and they introduced us to the id guys. And I guess enough years have gone by, I can say they said, you should ask for this much money. They'll pay it to you. So it was a very good trip for us.
I never heard that.
Wow.
Oh, well, I've been very good about not saying it in public.
I'm impressed.
Maybe not enough time has gone by. I don't know. But we weren't even thinking we were in the same genre, shooters or whatever. We were just doing let's do a flying game. Let's bring it indoors because there's more stuff to do. Otherwise you're always doing these big barrel, whatever. You're doing these lengthy maneuvers. So really it was just a combat flight simulator brought indoors, which could slide and go backwards and stuff. But that's how we viewed it initially. You couldn't slide. You could go backwards. You could go forward and backwards and turn, but you couldn't slide. And sliding is really what Descent Combat is all about. And then, sort of ironically, we made it simpler when we did Freespace, which is we took all the obstructions away. It was just little ships out there flying until we put capital ships in, and then created huge problems again. But,
It kind of reminds me of the Red Faction evolution because the first 2 games there were these more corridor things and they were good, but then when you got to Guerrilla and opened things up, that was damned amazing.
Right, and in my opinion, we learned from making 2 corridor shooters with destruction, which is that those are features that are at odds with each other. Destruction in a corridor shooter is limited. Destruction in an open world is much more. I'm trying not to look at Dave now because we had a lot of arguments about the early development of that game, but at least I thought it made sense. And actually, the profits on Red Faction 1 and 2 were way higher than they were on Red Faction Guerrilla.
Hey, by the way, guys, we're getting some kind of a feedback in the thing. I don't know if somebody's knocking a thing or something.
No.
It's probably the fan.
The fan.
Our
the
air
fan was not on
conditioner
earlier.
kicks
Should I just
on.
turn it off?
Sure.
No, it actually sounds like somebody's touching something that the microphone's attached to
Okay.
or something because
All
we
right.
get like a
Should we
bong
pull it
noise.
off so it's not.
It's a little wonky.
All right. Turn down your volume a little too.
That could be. Yeah.
So now that Freespace 1 and 2 are on GOG and Steam, have you guys been surprised at how popular they still are this many years later?
I don't know. We don't get any data on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the fact that people are still playing it and there's still this very active community, it amazes me every time I go to check things out or I interact with, folks from Hardlight Productions or, the other, whatever else is going on.
I think
So
it was. I think it started making a comeback. I remember hearing that original boxes of Freespace 2 were selling for like $100 or something like that. I don't know when.
Yeah, they were.
It's probably
they
like
totally
2005, 6, something like that. And then I started hearing more. And I remember hearing about the Babylon 5 mod and various other ones, but I guess it got bigger and bigger while I wasn't. I think most of us weren't really paying that much attention to it when we were on console at the time, and we were working in a different market. And it it's very gratifying. It's nice to know that people still care. And when I recently went back and looked at some videos, I thought, wow, that actually looks pretty good. It holds up pretty well today. And a lot of old stuff is coming back, and then you've got new games that look old. I mean, things like Minecraft, right? Is certainly not being sold on the 2014 graphics. So I think maybe there's too much derivative stuff being done that people wanted to go back and look at older games.
I mean, if you look at Chris Roberts' stuff, I mean,
Yeah.
$63 million to me indicates there are people out there who want a space sim. Like, people, I can't believe how much money they're throwing at that project. It's incredible.
It will be very interesting to see what happens
I know,
there. It could be very important what happens
I'm
there,
sure
too.
I'm sure he's overwhelmed, but it's like,
They added pets.
yes,
Really?
Yeah, that
They
was
get
the
that,
latest stretch
showing,
goal.
like all the Ultima Online stuff.
Yeah, finally.
I would, if I was them, I'd be worried about, okay, we have so much money, we need to produce something clean and coherent and not attempt to chase a million features because now we're getting more money and more money and more money. Like, you wanted to build a coherent game.
Yeah, they should build the game they were going to build and then build more after that. But just because you thought they were going to build what, I don't know, a $5 million game.
I think it was two.
Two. You
Yeah.
can't take
Wow,
that
really?
design document and say, okay, let's amp it up by a factor of 31.
No, it doesn't work now.
Yeah, I just wish they would.
It's a great indicator that there's still interest out there, or perhaps it's coming back.
I don't think it ever went away. I just think the market changed and shifted in a different direction. I mean, I think the fans were still there, but I think they got outweighed or outnumbered by fans of other things, which sold better.
Sure. Console. I mean, the rise of the consoles
Exactly.
and the big AAA, quadruple A titles of the consoles kind of drowned out the more hardcore,
Yeah.
niche kind of games.
It was a hard 10 years. Or at least, it was more than that. It was like at least 11 or 12. And then we've started seeing stuff again. Which
Yeah,
is,
it's pretty exciting.
It's
I'm
insanely
curious. I'm curious what's going to happen with this new round of games.
Well, I don't know if you guys have played Elite Dangerous, but
I have.
that is the B's and E's.
I have. I've been having quite a lot of fun with that game. I'm afraid it requires a little more lately, but it
As
is pretty
any good
cool.
Elite game should.
Well, they've been adding features faster than I can really appreciate them, which is, a sign that I'm not going to be a long-time player of this game. But hey, sadly, but I
Your
like
kids
my
will get
heart
older,
is.
and then you can play more games.
Yeah, I play it, and I'm just like, oh, this is really feeling like old times. This is really hitting the spot. I like this. It's cool. I dig it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's sort of this semi-indie genre that's coming about where they're not quite the little tiny indie genre games, but they're certainly not the full-scale games. And seeing that side of the industry grow back again is really nice because that's where people are unafraid to try something that's new and interests them because their budgets aren't so high, but their budgets aren't also so low that the game is complete crap. It's a sort of a sweet spot in there. I don't know. At some point you cross from the 5 million mark to the 15 million mark, and whoever you're dealing with gets scared about making a game that might not sell. And
Right.
the pressure comes on to, okay, well, we got to make it a little more.
Make it like that other game that
Exactly.
everyone knows and did well. Yeah.
When you're in the 50 million plus range, forget about it. It's all science at that point.
Yeah, with Star Citizen, I kind of wish they'd stop doing stretch goals and just say, okay, we're not going to focus on development, because it's getting ridiculous. Pets, and early, what were some of the stretch goals? Or a bar, towels, an aquarium.
Towels?
Yeah, towels. I'm not even kidding. Towels, in-game towels, not real towels that you would get, but in-game, in your hangar towels.
We had to cut towels from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of liked how.
Couldn't work out the.
We couldn't get the
physics.
towel movement going, so we cut it. Yeah, we
Yeah, the
didn't have-
technology at the time couldn't handle the realistic, the fur of the towels.
I think Star Citizen, their initial scope was really big. I think probably their initial funding goal was probably not enough for the scope they had planned. But what they have now is way more than they needed. So something amazing should come out of that.
Let's hope. Let's really, really hope.
We're rooting for them.
Yeah, I mean, if that, I'm worried if that becomes a failure, it'll reflect poorly on the rest of the genre, and the genre's kind
I
of.
think it'll reflect poorly on all crowdfunding too.
Oh
I
God.
think I think I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it's at a tipping point, but there's more and more people who feel they got
Yeah.
burned, and you know the worst enemy you can have is a former fan who felt betrayed. So I think it could be. I don't know if that thing turns into a train wreck, it's going to be a really interesting and significant train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the Steam Greenlight stuff and the crowdfunded subgenre has had mixed results. There have been some big successes and a couple of really, really dismal failures.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people are still on the fence.
Yeah, it's definitely a double-edged sword.
Real quick, is the audio better? Did the problem go
Oh
away?
no, yeah, we're fine.
Okay,
I don't know whatever that was, but it has gone away. Thank you very much.
Probably the air
It might have been a
conditioner.
fan.
You guys are all still in Illinois. How is the weather out there for you right now?
It hit 42 degrees today. It's pretty good.
Oh God, if that was LA, people would be hanging themselves.
They would die.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they would be dead. Yeah.
Overnight, their pipes would freeze. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Rioting.
I mean, it's raining out here, and people are losing their ever-loving minds.
Well, it's dark here right now, but
It's probably close.
But anyway, I guess that's probably a good place to wrap this up. I do actually kind of have to get back to work, surprisingly. But gentlemen, I want to thank you so much. And if we could do this again, maybe with, like you said, maybe other people who were involved in the project, and you guys again, that'd be awesome. We should talk about that. When we're done.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
I would also like to know what sort of bribe it would take to get another space game out of you guys. Now that the market's hot for it. But yeah, it's I mean, it's great to talk to you guys about this. But it's what's Volition got in the pipe right now? Like what's happening?
Huh.
We are working on our next gen title.
wasn't something announced at
No.
E3? Not at E3 in Europe. No.
I don't
Well,
think
there's
so.
the GAT stuff.
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
no.
I'm
but
sorry.
nothing new has been announced.
Nothing new based out of this studio has been announced
No.
that I know, right, Jason? No.
So is there perhaps like a new IP coming along or something, or are you guys still kind of in the same space?
Well, at the moment, we're focusing on a big tech upgrade, dealing with basically switching away from cross-gen stuff to purely next-gen engine building. We had the code base from basically Saints Row 3 and 4, actually from Saints Row 4 and backwards, is sort of is almost a 15-year archaeological history of Volition code. You can find descentphysics.cpp still in the Saints Row code base. So
Slew mode?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
exactly. So there was a lot of baggage.
It
that
might
had-
have been code I wrote. In other words,
It's very possible.
Certainly.
But
There's
you
a-
eradicated all of it in the last year or two.
So we've been basically tooling up and shedding a lot of the baggage that comes from just old techniques of building things that worked on previous generations, and trying to, make a spiffy new engine.
Yeah, and that's a thing just in the video game market in general right now. We're seeing like the transition from previous gen to next gen, and it seems like all the studios are kind of in that valley right now where they're divorcing last gen and trying to get their stuff in current gen, but there's no real good AAA stuff that's hitting. There's some stuff, but it's nothing that I'm super enthused about yet. But it's like everybody's like, oh God, is video gaming dying or what? Because nothing good is happening and the sales are bad. And it's like, well, no, because you got to get like 2 years into the platform before everybody's got their toolbox together. So
Yeah, I have pretty high hopes for this generation, just because the hardware is much more uniform and much more friendly than the last one, or even the last two generations. So I expect things to be much smoother and higher quality, quicker this time around.
Okay,
is
I
the
have,
port?
oh,
Okay, we'll let Brian get because.
no. I have a question. I have one last random question since you mentioned Saints Row. The first Saints Row game I played was 2, and I loved it. But when I played 3, I was disappointed to find that the Septic Avenger mission was removed, and that was my favorite.
How did I know he was going there?
And that was my favorite thing in Saints Row 2. So I just want to know why. What happened?
I don't know.
Sounds like a question for the writer.
Yeah, none of the people who decided that are in the
Designer.
room.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because that was so great. I mean, your games
We
are.
didn't want
This,
Saints Row 3 to be too wacky, I think, was the.
what?
Become more mature, right?
Yeah.
I think Saints Row 2 was kind of the peak of the. If it feels good,
Of
let's do
adolescence.
it. Yeah.
Oh,
Seriously,
really?
no, really, and it didn't really matter if it was part of this coherent experience or it fit one of the pillars of our game design or whatever. I think in 3, we got back to being a little more serious about that stuff and trying to, not just go for the quick laugh. It's still
Right.
plenty ridiculous and offensive and whatever at different points, but it was more of a, I don't know, a little more crafted, I guess,
Right.
in that sense.
Well, I want to wrap this up.
This is a
sorry.
non-designer's opinion, of course.
That's fair. But I want to say, I hope next time, if we do this again, we can get some folks from the open source community on here to talk to you guys about what they've worked on with the engine. I think that'd be great.
Complain about the code.
They very well might. I don't know, but I think that'd be at least fun.
Ask you a specific question
On
about code you
line
wrote in 1998. Yeah.
642.
What were you thinking?
What the hell? is this?
Exactly. I think for
Exactly.
viewers, it'd be very entertaining.
I did when we released the source code. I spent, I don't know, 2-3 hours stripping out curse words from
Yeah.
comments and sterilizing it a little bit.
I did greps on various words before we released the descent code, and I thought, the obvious, the 7 magic words were not in there, believe it or not.
Hey, I've got it. I solved the problem. We can make everybody
Problem?
happy.
What?
What you need to do is a Saints Row DLC in space, right? So let Gat fly
Wasn't
a
Saints Row 3 in
starfighter.
space before?
The
4 was
Mars-
kind of in space.
4 was in space.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
you didn't fly a starfighter around, did you?
Mm.
Are there any free space Easter eggs in the Saints Row games at all?
Probably not.
Oh.
That'd be cross-publisher.
Yeah.
Cross-genre
Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
publisher could be. I don't know if you can you can contend it's parody when it's in a commercial game.
Yeah.
I don't think it's at that level of art yet. Parody in a movie maybe, but
Yeah,
I
that's
know you
assuming that's assuming you could even find it. I mean, we have had people sneak Easter eggs into the game that even we didn't know were in there.
Yeah.
Over
It's
the
not
years.
the best.
Yeah. Well, we actually had the essentially the 2001 monolith in Red Faction that we ripped out, and all it was a 1:9 ratio dark object, and we ripped it out. And I don't know who put it in the first place, but when I saw it, I thought, I don't know, and I asked a couple of questions, and I thought, let's just rip it out. It's just an Easter egg, and we don't want to get crucified for an Easter egg. So I think as the industry matured, some of that stuff became less frequent, except for rogue programmers doing whatever they wanted.
Yes. Oh, then hot coffee happened, and
Right? That's true. I forgot about that.
Yes.
Right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much again for taking the time to come out
you.
and talk
All
to
right.
us.
Thank you. It's been fun.
This has
Yeah.
been a pleasure, and we have to do this again if we can.
Absolutely.
And I will let you, Adam, I will be in touch. I'll let you know when this goes live. You want to share it anywhere.
Yeah. Sounds awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.
And we had a great audience in Twitch. People were talking left and right. I think it's one of the biggest groups of folks I've seen in Twitch yet. So thanks for everyone for
Right.
listening.
All right. Fantastic.
Have a great day, everyone. I'm about to cut the stream. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.
We'll see ya.